Hey, movie fans! I saw Disclosure Day when it came out theaters, and I was really excited for this movie. Number one, because it's Steven Spielberg, one of the best filmmakers of all time, and also the fact him doing an Alien movie again was had me excited because he did E.T. and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which I think are both fantastic movies. So I was excited to see him go back to this genre. My overall thoughts on Disclosure Day was that it was mediocre. I found this to be a very average, forgettable movie. I don't think this movie's terrible. I don't think this is a bad movie. It's not one of the worst movies of the year or anything like that. I would say this is definitely one of his weaker movies, though. Let me start with the positives with this movie. I love how this movie throws you right into the meat of the story at the start. This movie is basically one gigantic chase film, and this is the first time I've seen this in a Steven Spielberg film where he just throws you right into the meat of the story at the start, where you're already on the one with the one of the two main characters of the film. Joss O'Connor's character. So I like that aspect of the story. I like the fact he just throws you right into the action at the beginning. Another positive with this movie is that I think Emily Blunt gives a great performance, like she always does in all her movies. Like to me, she's one of the best actresses working today, and she's been great every time I've seen her in before this, and she does a great job again. She gives a fantastic performance, but she has to speak their own language at certain points, and she has a lot of the emotional moments. And okay, I think it's most of the heavy lifting, and she really delivers in those emotional moments. So to me, it's another great performance from Emily Blunt, and I would say she's the biggest positive about this movie. And that's really about it when it comes to things I really liked about this film. When it comes to like the stuff that I was missed on, one of the things is that there's this whole subplot in this movie about how would this affect Melissa. Like the whole plot of the movie is you have Joss O'Connor's character who has a hard drive that has information that aliens exist. And you have the secret government trying to chase him down, and you have Emily Blunt's character who gets involved later on. You find her and Joss O'Connor were both abducted by aliens later on in the movie. So Joss O'Connor's character has a girlfriend who used to be a nun, and she's asking questions like, when she finds out what's on a hard drive, how would this affect Listen? I like that in concept. Like the idea of like, okay, if the world found out aliens were real, if like, how would it affect people who are religious people who have faith in God? How would it affect the idea of that? Well, you're not the only one in the universe. How does that affect somebody's belief in God? I think that's very interesting in concept. The problem with that subplot in this movie for me is that they talk about it, they don't go anywhere with it. You don't get any answers out of it. It just feels like the subplot that they talk about at the beginning with her character, and they never actually do anything interesting with that subplot. So it ends up feeling like a pointless subplot that you could cut out of this movie. So like I like that subplot in theme. I think that's something that could have been interesting to explore. They don't explore it though in this movie, and they never answer those questions. So it just feels like a subplot that you could cut out of this movie. And like some of the other negatives with this movie for me is that this movie's too long. This movie's like over 2 hours, slightly over 2 hours. And I feel like you could have cut probably 20 minutes out of this movie, like 20 to 25 minutes. Because I feel like you could have cut out the whole religious subplot. You also have a character, Emily Blunt's boyfriend, who is played by Wyatt Russell, who I think is a great actor. His character just feels pointless in this movie. He like disappears later on too, and then you only see him again in the very last scene for like a moment. Like his character is just there to add comic relief when it comes to having some levity to the movie, lighthearted moments. Which those moments I thought were nice. Like I like the tone of the movie, so I thought those lovely moments that he added were nice. At the end of the day, though, his character you could cut out his character out of this movie and wouldn't change the plot. And for me, that sucks because he's a great actor, and I wish they gave him a role that was more important in the movie. It just his character just feels pretty pointless to me. I also just never really cared much for his relationship with Emily Blunt's character. I didn't really feel any chemistry there, and I was like, what's like I just never really cared much for the relationship between those two characters. So his character just felt very pointless to me in this movie. Another problem with this movie for me, besides it being too long and why was the characters being pointless, is that Colin Firth, who I think is a great actor. He plays the head of this corporation, the secret government. There's this whole element with his character where his wife died. They don't dive into that in this movie. And also, I found his character to be so generic bad guy to me. He felt like a very generic, one-dimensional villain in this movie for me. It's like, oh, the head of a secret government. He's trying to chase Joss O'Connor's character down, Emily Blunt's character down, because they have information about alien existence and they don't want it to get to the public. They're afraid people won't be able to handle that information. So this character just comes off very generic bad guy to me. I didn't find him a very interesting villain. I think he died more of the stuff that happened to his wife, how she died, that could have made him a more interesting villain. Otherwise, though, he's just a very generic villain to me in this movie. And you don't dive enough into that stuff with his wife being killed. So, he's a great actor. I just don't think they give him any interest in to play as a villain in this movie. There's also times this movie gets a little goofy with the powers. In the movie, you see that Emily Blunt's character and Joss O'Connor's character, they both have abilities. I felt like they got a little ridiculous and goofy with the abilities. I also think they do a good job of explaining how the powers work at times. It just feels like they're able to just like do anything, and there's no rules to it. So that was another problem with the movie, is that I feel like they didn't make it clear the rules on how the powers like work. And there was this like item in the movie where they Confess character uses, and Emily Blunt's character also has a piece of item too, and she's using it in one scene to make them all like to make the building disappear in this one scene, and dumb disappearing, but they're still in that building with Colin Farrell's character and his man are trying to find them. It's like that, it just can't. It's just, for me, I felt like that item in the movie, they didn't explain. I feel like they don't really give you rules on like how what the item can exactly do and how the powers work and all that. So it got a little ridiculous for me at times, and some of the movies just came off a little goofy. I will say another positive is that there's a scene you see in the trailer with on a Emily Blunt's character and Jocelyn character's like train hit the car, and I thought that was a well shot scene. I think it went on a little too long, and it also got a little ridiculous in that scene for me when you have the bad guy who's not that far. Like, I understand they're on a moving train. I found it really unbelievable how that guy, when he tried to shoot them, he wasn't able to hit them. Like, he wasn't that far away. And that's another problem I have with this movie. They treat the villains, the bad guys in this movie, like idiots. There are times where Joss O'Connor's character and Emily Blunt's character feel like they just get away out of plot convenience. And it ends up coming off like bad writing to me. Which is like, oh, we just need them to get away just for them to get to the next plot point. Instead of having to be like smart, where it's like, oh, they got away because you had like a really good writing, like you had a good writing where you did it in a way where it was like smart writing, where they would get away because it was like compelling, and it was like, oh yeah, like they were able to get away. In this movie, it felt like they got away because of plot convenience. It was just like, oh, we have to have them get away. There's like one point where Joss O'Connor's like walking, I think you're like walking out of like he's outside and walking behind some of the henchmen, some of the bad guys to the car, and I'm like, nobody saw him. There's just times in this movie where I was like, they treated the bad guys like the idiots, and this is supposed to be some secret government agency that's like watching the whole world. And there was times where I was just like, okay, you're just having them get away because of plot convenience. Also, Colin Firth's character at the end just gives up for no reason. I was like, really? He just like gives up. Like, there's no reason for why he gives up. It's just like, oh, he just gives up and decides not to like try to stop him anymore to reveal this information to the world. And just the idea of how would people react to aliens if they exist. That's an interesting idea. They don't go anywhere. They don't do anything with it. So it's like the Melissa subplot where it feels like you had an interesting theme there, or even an idea of like whether people can handle information like that. It's just they don't explore that or go anywhere interesting with that. And this movie is just very predictable. Like the ending felt predictable to me. I found the ending to be extremely underwhelming. It was just like, really, that's the ending. Okay, I saw that coming. It's okay the ending. It's just like I was just like it's very predictable. It's full of tropes from like other Steven Spielberg movies that I've seen. It has some cliches I've seen him do in his other films. It doesn't really do anything new, this movie, when it comes to the idea of an alien movie. I feel like I've seen elements of this movie in other films where it's just kind of like, okay, you don't really do anything unique or new. And the character who's Josh Connell's girlfriend, his character's girlfriend, I didn't really care for their relationship either, and her character wasn't very interesting to me personally. And that's one of the other negatives with this movie. Even though I think Emily Blunt gives a great performance in this movie, I didn't find myself really invested in any of the characters in this film or really emotionally connected to them. And it's not because I think they were not because I think they were bad characters. They just weren't very interesting characters to me. Like I don't feel like we get to know Emily's Blunt character too well. And Josh O'Connor's character, I just found his character to be extremely boring. Like he was just very dull character to me. So overall, yeah, this movie just was very mediocre. Not terrible, not one of the worst movies of the year, but I feel like as a Steven Spielberg fan, I've seen him do so much better movies than this. I've seen him do way better alien movies than this. Again, not a bad movie. Emily Blunt's performance, I think, is great. I like the fact that it puts you right into the story at the start when it comes to the accent. And also, Colin Domingo, I think he's great in this still. You know, he's always great in everything. I liked his character. Otherwise, though, it's a movie where I feel like the bad guys were idiots. It's very predictable. The ending was underwhelming. I never really got emotionally invested in the characters. The whole religious subplot doesn't go anywhere. And the idea of how people react to aliens, they didn't do anything interesting with that story or go anywhere with that story. And you don't really get to that story until the very end of the movie. Like this movie is just one big chase movie, which is fine if you went somewhere interesting with that story, with the idea of reviewing information to the world and how people handle information, and whether you should hide that from people. It's just they don't go anywhere interesting with that, and you don't get to that story until the very end of the movie, which was just extremely predictable. And Colin Farrell, like I said, he was not a very interesting villain to me, and they don't dive enough into that part of his character when it comes to his wife dying. And how the powers work in this movie felt at times goofy and ridiculous, and it felt like they just kind of didn't like. There was no rules to it, so there was times I just felt like they just were able to do whatever they wanted with the powers. And to me personally, I understand you're dealing with aliens. At the same time, there's a way to make it where you can have some like rules to it that makes sense. And the powers at times the movie just felt like they were just able to do whatever they hell they could with the powers. So I had a problem with that, and there's just times where it got a little ridiculous for me with the powers. So overall, I thought Disclosure Day was mediocre. Not a terrible movie, not one of the worst movies of the year. Just a movie that I found underwhelming and disappointing as a Steven Spielberg fan. And it's just, I would say you can wait to watch this movie at home. I wouldn't, like, this is not a movie I would tell you to go run out the theaters to see. It's to me a very okay, watchable, forgettable movie that I'm not gonna remember. So that's my thoughts on Disclosure Day. Until next time, movie fans.